Welcome to my Cacao kitchen. I'm Fran, the founder of Cacao, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a superfood hot chocolate drink using ceremonial grade cacao. Now, I'm very mindful about working with cacao in a ceremonial or a ritual space, in which case I will use a slow brew method without any electrical equipment, without any plant milks, and with very minimal other spices and added ingredients, so that I'm specifically working with the medicine of cacao and engaging with the spirit of the plant in a very mindful and connected way. But sometimes I also just want to have a delicious superfood hot chocolate. And there's nothing wrong with using cacao in this other space. It's just not for a ritual or for a ceremony. It's still very nutritious and very nurturing for our body. So instead of grabbing that unhealthy snack in the afternoon or a cup of coffee to keep me going, I now substitute it for a delicious, wholesome cup of cacao. So enjoy watching how I prepare the fast blender method for a superfood hot chocolate drink. But if I just wanted an afternoon pick-me-up, instead of going for my coffee, I would, which I don't drink anymore actually, I've completely substituted coffee with cacao, I would just go with a superfood drink of cacao. In which case, using the blender is absolutely fine. What I'm doing now is not adding boiling water to the cacao. I haven't even started chopping the cacao yet. I'm just heating up my blender and cleansing it with some boiling water. So here's a little tip. I'm first going to melt in my sweetener and my other ingredients. Then I'm going to temper it by adding a cold liquid, and then I'm going to add my cacao right at the end. I'm first going to chop the cacao, so let's put the blender aside for now. Chopping my cacao. Now, if you're wanting this to be a quick preparation as well, you can essentially pre-chop your cacao and store it in the glass jar or the plastic or a resealable bag, in which case you don't have to do this. You could just take a spoon and scoop out about 2 tablespoons if it's shaved quite fine like this. That's roughly 2 tablespoons. All right. Then that's ready. Now I have a bunch of things to show you here, but I'm going to start with one recipe and then afterwards give you some other ones. Recipe 1 is, same thing with my sweetener. I'm using coconut sugar. You could use honey, which I have here. You could use mesquite, use anything you like. I'm adding 1 teaspoon, it's very sweet. 1 teaspoon straight to the blender like that. Before I add the boiling water, I'm adding my salt, a crack of salt there. I love my cinnamon, so I'm adding in lots of cinnamon. And cacao and cinnamon, they grow together in the jungle, so I call them friends. Let's first put in the boiling water, just to melt the coconut sugar. And if the salt starts to melt in, I don't put too much. I'm probably putting about 120 mils that I've just put in there. All right. And I just whirl it around, melting the sugar basically. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of peanut butter. All right. Sometimes it might be a tablespoon, but there goes a nice big teaspoon of peanut butter. Now this makes it nice and creamy. Those of you who are used to using your oat milks or coconut milk, oat milk, macadamia milk, almond milk, the nut milks often will make it a little creamier, but this is the condensed version. I could add some almond butter, I could add some cashew butter, and it will all be even creamier than the actual nut milk. All right, but I am also going to add a little bit of oat milk before I add the cacao, because this is still boiling water in here. It's starting to cool down, but it's probably only 95, 90 degrees, too hot for the cacao. So shake up my oat milk, so I'm just going to add a little bit just to temper, literally just that much. I guess quite a lot, if you saw what I did. Not too much because I don't want a cold drink. Now, straight in here, I put my cacao because it's not boiling in there. Right. And I just kind of know from doing this quite a lot how much a cup looks like. About 250 to 300 mils. I think we're ready for the blender. All right. That was about 10 seconds. Doesn't have to be more than that. I also just swirl it around a bit. It just allows some of those bubbles that create the froth on top to settle. For this one, I'm going to pour it into my thermos. I have another thermos ready here, which I'm just going to heat up with the last bit of hot water. That is what I would be doing right now if I wanted to move to another spot, maybe go for a nature walk. I have my cacao, my thermos, I take my cup with, I take maybe a stick of incense and a candle, and I go sit somewhere outside in nature. I want to add something to this now. So this would be the second recipe. You can start with the same base, your sweetener, your salt, your cinnamon. Mix that in with some boiling water. And then you don't have to add the peanut butter like I did. You could just add some nut milk of your choice. Oat milk is quite nice. Macadamia milk is quite nice. The macadamia milk makes it quite creamy. And now I'm going to add a mushroom tincture. I'm very fond of these. I don't like to normally do any brand promoting here, but I often get asked this, which ones do I use? So if you're in South Africa, Ether Apothecary, can't go wrong. They specialize in mushroom tinctures and very ethically sourced, and nice connection that they have there with the spirit of the mushrooms. All right, so I'm using reishi over here. I'll just put a few down there. One stopper is enough. And that's just got that adaptogenic property. Cacao and the mushrooms together, great combination. All right, so I'm going to pour this in, and then I'll give you a few more recipe suggestions. If you don't have the tinctures, but you do work with mushroom powders, chaga mushroom is wonderful, really is great. Just be mindful how much you put in because it will change the flavor. Remember that everything has an energy, and everything is a plant actually that we are using here today. And they all come with a certain personality. There's nothing wrong with having all the personalities come into the party, which is what I made in the blender. But if you're just wanting to connect to the personality of cacao, then it makes sense that you want her to have primary focus, and she's the main ingredient there. And you're just adding a little bit of salt to enhance maybe the flavor of the chocolate, or you're adding some sweetener because otherwise it doesn't taste that nice for you. You know then each ingredient why you are adding it. All right, that's very important when working with rituals and the slow brew process, and for ceremonies. We're intentional with every single ingredient, and less is more. When we're just enjoying a superfood hot chocolate drink with ceremonial cacao, then we can add the peanut butters, the nut butters, cashew nut butter also, super nice and creamy. Your oat milks. You can add all sorts of other spices like cayenne pepper. If you like to make it very spicy, you could actually have a crack of black pepper as well. So the combinations are endless. A trick to make it creamier, like you saw me use a teaspoon of a nut butter of your choice. I do like peanut butter, and I don't think it changes the flavor too much, but you could use almond nut butter, cashew nut butter, macadamia nut butter. If you wanted the creamiest that you can ever have, then a coconut milk, or even better, coconut cream. This is a really good one as well. The Cara brand, I think they are pretty global now. They're from Indonesia and South Africa. We can definitely get them here. In terms of sweeteners, I've already shown you the coconut sugar, coconut blossom nectar, I mentioned that earlier. And I like to use the superfood sweeteners as well. So the maca powder and the mesquites are very nice. And honey, of course, if you aren't vegan, honey, try get yourself a nice bee-friendly honey, as I call it, one that's been respectfully harvested. Then, I'm not a fan of essences, but again, if you want to just have a little bit of the flavor of vanilla and you only have an essence, just a little bit of that. And I personally only work with Himalayan salts, but of course, whatever salt you have available to you. And I mentioned some of the other spices that we can use, which I haven't used today because it's quite a warm day here and I don't really want to increase my energy anymore. But these are the things like your pepper, your cayenne pepper, chili flakes. You can have, you could actually take the seeds of the chili, crush it. I've got my pestle and mortar here. I haven't used it today just because it takes a bit long to do everything from the actual plant source instead of working with the powders. But take your time with this, prepare your space and just have fun and play.